It is 4:50 on Tuesday, January 21st. It is super, super cold outside. Not because it's necessarily cold. I can deal with like a 10, 15, maybe even 5 degrees. It's just being there. I can bundle up and it'll be fine. But dang, the wind chill's been bringing it down to the negatives. It's been cold. And very frustrating. I went to the gym yesterday. I'm walking, and I had a hat on, sweatpants. I had shorts underneath, and I had my really heavy winter coat that's graded for negative 30 degrees, and I had to put my hood up, you stuff your nose underneath your collar, and I was so cold. I get into the athletic center in the gym, and I swear I was nearly getting frostbite on my cheeks. It was crazy. But it's not. I won't talk about the weather. Maybe tomorrow, because I'm going skiing. So I'll give some weather updates and how that goes. But I was going to talk. There's some things I want to talk about. I could go on and on about classes in this application, but I don't want to talk about that again. And talk about food, but I really already have talked about that. And there's something I really want to talk about that comes into the uncanny valley, because I'm so fascinated by that. I wrote an essay on that in boarding school. It was a great essay. It was actually comparing the sublime versus the uncanny. Beautiful essay, one of my favorites that I wrote. So I wrote it on Blade Runner 2044, or whatever it is, 2077. And then compared it to a book called Clara and the Sun. Phenomenal essay, in my opinion, that I wrote. But I kind of want to talk about something a little bit more, maybe not lighthearted, but not eerie and kind of scary, because even though I'm fascinated by that topic, it does kind of scare me half the time. I guess I could talk about, as I mentioned, essays right now, is that am doing work with writing an essay, and I'm having somebody help me with it, and the person that's helping me with it has a different style of working through a problem than I do, and it's kind of frustrating to watch sometimes. I get to a point, when I was in boarding school, I had a method to write essays, and it was good, because my teacher had a PhD in English and analytical essay literature stuff from UC Berkeley. And it's we would call her doctor instead of professor. She was legit. One of the best English teachers I've ever had, and prepared me so much on writing essays that when it came to college, it was actually a step down. I've talked with other friends who had her class, and I had her 2 years in a row, which is crazy. But we had a method where she was very into writing the thesis. The thesis, I agree with her. The thesis is the most important part of an essay. And you have two ways you can write a thesis. You go, I think it's observation, significance, inference, or you go observation, significance, thesis, antithesis. Those are the two types of things you can do. And that essentially encompasses the entire introductory paragraph. Maybe want to add a couple more baseline introduction things above the observation, but that's how it should go. And so what I would do is that we would read to the end of the book. I read Beloved junior year, Frankenstein, Dante's Inferno. She was insane when it came to books. But we read it. I would work on my thesis and get everything, thesis and the quotes out the entire week until Friday. I would get it checked with her on Friday. And then Saturday, I would just organize everything. I would do an incredible rough draft of just bullet points. And then Sunday, because the boarding school that I went to had half days on Wednesdays and Saturdays for sports. That was good when it was hockey season, but it wasn't good when it wasn't hockey season. And plus, I like to sleep. But I would finish that, and on Saturday, or Sunday, I would wake up at 12, go get lunch, go to a specific room that I know nobody else would enter, and I would be in there writing my essay for the next 7 hours straight. And I would walk around the classroom, like I'm kind of doing right now, talking. And I would write and write and write. And if I needed to take a break, I would walk and start talking out loud in the essay. And I never got below a B+ on any essays. And she was a hard teacher. She graded hard. But it was my method. And that's still what I do now. I haven't been really needing to write analytical essays. I love writing analytical essays, more so than creative or philosophical or whatever other categories there are. But I did this course on sociology, we read a book about COVID, and that's what I did. I found a classroom, I got my thesis down, I got the quotes down, and then like a couple days before I went to a classroom, worked on it the entire day. And it was a big glass classroom, and people would come and go, and they would see me walking around, throwing a marker in the air and catching it, like I'm doing right now, and talking out loud and thinking and being, and like I'll like skip and I'll like have to think, and that's how I did my work. And so I find that when writing this essay about why I want to do this program, which is a lot more difficult because I don't like talking about myself or talking about what I want. I like identifying patterns and significance to everybody in a whole. Like I said, analytical, my favorite. Like my final senior year essay was on the message difference between All Quiet on the Western Front, Nixon and Invested, and the movie versus the book, and how the movie was talking about how bad war was by itself, and how the book was talking about how the effects of war were bad. And it was really cool finding the differences, writing it down, and writing, I think it was like a 7-page essay. It's great, I got like an A- on it. But here I have to talk about myself and be creative and all this. So it's a little harder for me, and I usually like being alone when doing it because I walk around and I talk. And so when I'm working with this person, I'll say, okay, I kind of want to do this in this application. And she's like, all right, I have to write it down. If I don't write it down, then it's not going to get into my head. And it's not like typing out notes. He physically has to write it. And it gets annoying because at some points I'm in the zone. When you're in the zone, you're just in the zone, you got to get going. And so I have to stand up and start going around, and I'll go to my computer and start typing something. And she's just like, no, hold on, let me write it down. Okay, keep going. And I'm like, oh my God. And so it's frustrating in a way. Like, no fault to her, that's how she gets it done, but the way I do it, I think, is a little bit more dynamic, seeing that I'm, again, standing up. But it's more fluid. Like, it has to be done when it needs to be done. Like, I've talked with, like, my family members, and they're always under the impression that if you get something, you just do it immediately. And that's fair. But if it's something that doesn't absolutely need to be done immediately, there's no way that I physically can be able to do it until I want to be able to do it. And then when I do it, it's just done. Like writing emails. Like I had to write a couple emails to my advisor, declare my major and do a bunch of stuff. And I could have done it when I was at home or right before I went back to school in like January. But I was like, nah, I got to do this when I want to do this because this is important enough that if I don't want to do it, I'm going to do it terribly. But if I want to do it, I'll do it in a proper manner. And so that's like what happens. Like I gotta be in the right mindset to do it, because if I am not in the right mindset, I will actively do worse work than if I am in one. And maybe that's just a product of being at boarding school and having the way that I did my essays and stuff. Or it's just like that's how I work. And I understand that a lot of people get in the zone and do a bunch of things. Like people are in the zone and they start working. But I feel like a lot of people can work outside of the zone. And I have to be in a specific zone to do specific things. Like I have to be in a writing zone. I have to be in a math zone, a comp sci zone. Granted, I would be in a comp sci zone for mostly anything because, like, I find coding fun, like, normally. Others people don't. I have a hockey teammate who's taking classes that I've already taken. And I'll talk about it with him, and he's like, does it ever get easier? And I'm like, depends. But it's just, that's how it's going. Like, I just spent the past 2 hours doing some emo work and then writing this out. And working on my CV, which is a little bit more difficult because I have to figure out the right things to put into it and the right tabulations and to format it. But I was in the zone. I was working, and it doesn't feel like yesterday when my brain was absolutely fried because I just couldn't do anything. But now, it's better. And because now it is 5 o'clock, I am going to head to dinner and go to practice. And maybe afterwards I'll play some games with my boys. My friend who's one of my friends just injured his shoulder, so we have to console him. So I have to figure out how to do that, and if he can still whip it up in Marvel Rivals, but don't know. But yeah, after doing all this work, my brain is hungry, so time to go get food.